The Afghan mountains stretched endlessly beneath Captain Marcus Williams as he piloted his Apache through the thin air at 8,000 feet above sea level. 6 months into his first combat deployment, he had evolved from a newly qualified pilot into a seasoned combat aviator whose reputation for precision and reliability had spread throughout the aviation community and theater. The radio crackled with urgency as the forward air controller's voice cut through the static. Apache 2-4, this is Outpost Charlie. We have troops in contact, multiple casualties, and need immediate close air support. Grid coordinates follow. Marcus felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as he banked the aircraft toward the reported location, his weapons systems operator in the front seat already beginning target acquisition procedures. Roger. Outpost Charlie. Apache 2-4 is en route. Estimated time on station 2 minutes. Describe the tactical situation. As Marcus listened to the ground commander's report, he processed the information with the same systematic approach that had carried him through every previous challenge. Enemy fighters had ambushed an American patrol in a narrow valley, pinning down the soldiers behind inadequate cover while inflicting casualties. The scene below was chaos. Muzzle flashes from enemy positions dotted the mountainside, while American soldiers sought whatever protection they could find among the rocks and sparse vegetation. Marcus could see the tactical situation developing as he approached the area, his training and experience allowing him to quickly identify friend from foe despite the confusion. Gunner, I have multiple enemy positions on the eastern ridgeline, Marcus announced to his weapons systems operator, Warrant Officer Chen. Engage targets of opportunity, but watch for Blue Force positions at the base of the valley. Chen's response was immediate and professional. Roger, I have visual on enemy positions. Engaging with 30 Mike. The Apache's 30mm chain gun erupted in controlled bursts, each round precisely placed to neutralize enemy positions while avoiding any possibility of friendly fire. Marcus maneuvered the aircraft with fluid precision, providing Chen with optimal firing angles while maintaining defensive positioning against possible enemy air defense threats. Apache 2-4. Outstanding work, came the relieved voice of the ground commander.
Enemy fire has ceased and we're able to extract our wounded.
You guys just saved a lot of lives today. As Marcus turned toward base, he felt the deep satisfaction that came from using his skills to protect fellow soldiers in desperate situations. Back at the forward operating base, Marcus was approached by Lieutenant Colonel Davidson, the battalion commander. Williams, I've been watching your performance over the past several months. Your tactical skills, your precision under pressure, and your ability to make good decisions in complex situations have been exceptional. I'm recommending you for early promotion and assignment as a flight lead. The promotion to captain came through within weeks, along with assignment as a senior pilot responsible for leading complex missions and training newer aviators. At 25 years old, Marcus had achieved a level of responsibility and respect that many pilots took years to earn. But he never forgot the lessons learned during his journey from ridicule to recognition. One evening, as Marcus mentored a newly arrived pilot who reminded him of his younger self, he shared the philosophy that had guided his success. Lieutenant Johnson, talent gets you noticed, but preparation and determination keep you alive and successful in this business. Don't let anyone convince you that your background or your perceived limitations define your potential. The young pilot, who had struggled with confidence issues since arriving in theater, looked up with obvious gratitude. Sir, how do you maintain your composure during intense combat situations? Some of the other pilots seem naturally fearless, but I feel overwhelmed sometimes. Marcus smiled, remembering his own moments of doubt and uncertainty. Fear is normal, Lieutenant. The key is to channel that energy into focused preparation and precise execution. I learned a long time ago that confidence comes from knowing you've prepared for every possible scenario, and that your skills are equal to whatever challenges you face. The conversation continued for over an hour, with Marcus sharing practical techniques for managing stress and maintaining performance under pressure. As his deployment neared its end, Marcus reflected on how far he had traveled from those dark days in high school, when everyone had mocked his aviation dreams. He had flown over 100 combat missions, been awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for heroism during a particularly dangerous rescue operation, and earned a reputation as one of the finest Apache pilots in the theater. The final mission of his deployment was a complex operation involving multiple aircraft, and ground units working together to disrupt enemy supply lines in a heavily defended area. As the mission commander, Marcus was responsible for coordinating the entire aerial assault while simultaneously piloting his own aircraft and making tactical decisions that could impact the success of the operation. All Apache elements. This is Apache lead, Marcus announced as the formation approached the target area. Execute Alpha formation and begin your attack runs. Maintain radio discipline and watch for surface-to-air threats from the northern ridgeline. The mission proceeded flawlessly, with each pilot executing their assigned tasks with precision while Marcus orchestrated the overall operation. After landing back at base, Marcus was met by the brigade commander, Brigadier General Martinez, who had flown to the forward operating base specifically to recognize the success of the mission. Captain Williams, your leadership during today's operation was exemplary. The combination of tactical expertise, calm decision-making, and inspiring leadership made the difference between mission success and potential disaster. The recognition felt meaningful, but Marcus's greatest satisfaction came from knowing that he had lived up to the faith placed in him by all the people who had believed in his potential when others saw only limitations. As he prepared to return to the United States, he received news that would cap his remarkable journey, assignment as an instructor pilot at the Apache training facility where he had once struggled to earn his wings. The homecoming was emotional for Marcus and his mother, who had followed his career with a mixture of pride and worry. Seeing her son in his army dress uniform, decorated with combat ribbons and pilot wings, she struggled to connect this confident officer with the uncertain teenager who had once hidden from bullies behind the school building. Marcus, I wish I could go back and tell that scared 17-year-old what he was going to accomplish, she said through tears during their reunion dinner. You've exceeded every dream I ever had for you. Marcus took her hand and smiled. Mom, every challenge I faced, every person who doubted me, every moment of uncertainty, they all contributed to making me strong enough to achieve what seemed impossible. 6 months later, Captain Marcus Williams stood before a new class of Apache pilot candidates at Fort Rucker, beginning his assignment as an instructor pilot. As he looked at the eager faces before him, he saw reflections of his own journey. Young officers with dreams of flying the world's most sophisticated attack helicopter, some confident and some uncertain about their chances of success. Gentlemen and ladies, Marcus began his first instructional briefing. You're about to begin the most challenging training of your military careers. Some of you may doubt whether you have what it takes to succeed. Others may feel like outsiders who don't fit the traditional pilot profile. I want you to know that excellence isn't determined by where you come from or what others think of your potential. It's determined by your dedication, your preparation, and your refusal to accept limitations that others try to place on you. In the back of the classroom sat Second Lieutenant Thompson, the same young man Marcus had mentored years earlier at West Point. Thompson had followed his mentor's path through flight school and was now beginning Apache training. After the briefing, he approached Marcus with obvious excitement. Sir, I can't believe we're in the same unit again. Your mentorship at West Point changed the entire direction of my life. Marcus smiled, remembering his own mentors who had believed in him when belief was scarce. Thompson, you earned your place here through your own hard work. Now let's see how good an Apache pilot you can become. That evening, Marcus sat in his quarters reviewing the training records of his new students. Among the files was one that caught his attention, a young candidate whose background was remarkably similar to his own. The soldier had overcome significant obstacles to reach Apache training, and his determination reminded Marcus of his own journey from outcast to elite aviator. As Marcus prepared lesson plans for the next day's training, he thought about the incredible journey that had brought him from being laughed at in a high school cafeteria to instructing the next generation of Apache pilots. Every person who had mocked his dreams, every challenge that had seemed insurmountable, every moment when giving up would have been easier, they had all been stepping stones toward this moment. The boy who had once been ridiculed for reading aviation magazines was now responsible for training America's finest pilots to fly the most sophisticated attack helicopter in the world. He had proven that determination combined with preparation could. The AH-64 Apache sat on the flight line like a predator waiting to strike. Its angular fuselage, Stub wings loaded with weapons and distinctive tandem seating configuration represented the pinnacle of military aviation technology. As first lieutenant, Marcus Williams approached the aircraft for his first familiarization flight. He felt the same mixture of awe and determination that had driven him through every previous challenge. Apache training was legendary for its difficulty. The aircraft was incredibly complex, with multiple interconnected systems that required pilots to process information at superhuman speeds while making life-and-death decisions in combat situations. The failure rate was higher than any other aircraft in the Army inventory, and many experienced pilots had been humbled by the Apache's demanding nature. Chief Warrant Officer 4 Michael Torres would be Marcus's primary instructor pilot. Torres was a combat veteran with over 2,000 Apache flight hours, including multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. His reputation for excellence was matched only by his intolerance for anything less than perfection from his students. "Williams, before we even start the engines, you need to understand something," Torres said during their first briefing. "The Apache isn't just an aircraft. It's a weapons system that happens to fly. Every switch, every procedure, every decision you make can mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Are you prepared for that level of responsibility?" Marcus met the instructor's intense gaze without flinching. "Sir, I've been preparing for this responsibility my entire adult life. I'm ready for whatever challenges the Apache presents." Torres studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "We'll see. Let's start with systems familiarization." The next 6 months were the most intellectually and physically demanding of Marcus's life. The Apache systems were incredibly sophisticated, requiring pilots to master everything from weapons targeting computers to defensive countermeasures while maintaining precise flight control. The cockpit was cramped, with hundreds of switches, displays and controls that had to become as familiar as breathing. Marcus approached Apache training with the same systematic methodology that had carried him through every previous challenge. He created detailed study guides for each system, practiced emergency procedures until they became automatic responses, and spent countless hours in the flight simulator perfecting his techniques. While other students struggled with information overload, Marcus thrived on the complexity. The first live firing exercise was a milestone that separated serious Apache pilots from those who couldn't handle the pressure. Marcus found himself in the front seat of the aircraft responsible for weapon systems and target acquisition, while Torres flew from the back seat. Their target was a series of armored vehicles positioned at various ranges and elevations. "Williams, acquire target Alpha at your 12 o'clock, range 2,000 meters," Torres commanded through the intercom. Marcus's hands moved smoothly across the weapon system controls, his targeting sight locking onto the distant target with precision. "Target acquired, missile armed and ready," he reported, his voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. "Cleared hot. Engage target Alpha." The Hellfire missile streaked from the Apache's wing mount, its trail of smoke marking a perfect path to the target. The explosion was devastating, completely destroying the armored vehicle and earning an approving grunt from Torres. "Good shot, Williams. Now acquire target Bravo and show me what you learned." The gunnery training continued for weeks, with Marcus demonstrating exceptional accuracy with both missiles and the aircraft's 30mm chain gun. His hand-eye coordination, developed through years of studying aircraft systems and understanding weapon ballistics, translated into outstanding performance as a gunner. But Marcus knew that his ultimate goal was to become an aircraft commander, responsible for flying the Apache rather than just operating its weapons. The transition to pilot training in the Apache was where many candidates discovered their limitations. The aircraft was incredibly sensitive to control inputs, requiring a delicate touch combined with aggressive maneuvering capabilities. The power-to-weight ratio meant that small mistakes could quickly become dangerous situations, and the complex rotor system demanded precise coordination of all flight controls. Marcus's first solo flight in the Apache was a moment he had dreamed about since childhood. As he lifted off from the runway with no instructor in the back seat, he felt the full responsibility of controlling one of the world's most sophisticated weapons systems. Every control input was smooth and deliberate. Every system check was methodical and thorough, and every decision was made with the confidence that came from years of preparation and unwavering determination. The aircraft responded to his commands like an extension of his own body. Banking left toward the designated training area, Marcus felt the awesome power of the twin General Electric engines and the precise responsiveness of the sophisticated flight control systems. This was the moment he had visualized countless times, during those lonely hours in the high school library, reading about Apache specifications while his classmates mocked his dreams. "Apache 77, you're cleared to the gunnery range for weapons training," came the voice of the air traffic controller. Marcus acknowledged the transmission with professional calm, though inside he was experiencing the culmination of a journey that had begun with ridicule and evolved into mastery. As he approached the range, he could see the practice targets arranged in tactical formations that simulated real combat scenarios. The advanced tactical training phase pushed Marcus and his fellow students to their absolute limits. Night vision, goggle flights, formation flying in adverse weather, and complex mission scenarios that required split-second decision-making under extreme pressure. This was where the Apache revealed its true nature as a combat weapon system, rather than simply an aircraft. During one particularly challenging exercise, Marcus found himself leading a flight of 4 Apaches through a simulated combat zone with multiple threats and changing mission parameters. Enemy aircraft, surface-to-air missiles, and friendly forces all had to be tracked simultaneously, while maintaining formation integrity and accomplishing primary objectives. The mental workload was enormous, but Marcus handled it with the same calm focus that had characterized his approach to every challenge. "Flight lead, be advised you have multiple SAM sites active in your target area," the exercise controller announced through his headset. Marcus quickly assessed the threat picture, adjusted his flight path to minimize exposure, and coordinated with his wingmen to neutralize the threats while continuing toward their primary target. His tactical decision-making impressed even the most experienced evaluators. Chief Warrant Officer Torres, who had initially been skeptical of the quiet lieutenant with the unusual background, became one of Marcus's strongest advocates. "Williams has something special," he told the senior instructors during evaluation meetings. "He combines natural flying ability with tactical intelligence and unshakable composure under pressure. He's going to be an outstanding Apache pilot." The graduation ceremony for Apache qualification was attended by senior officers from throughout the aviation community. As Marcus received his Apache pilot wings, he thought about the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. The scared teenager who had been mocked for reading aviation magazines was now qualified to fly the most sophisticated attack helicopter in the world. But Marcus knew that earning his wings was just the beginning. The real test would come in operational assignments, where his skills would be measured not in training exercises, but in actual missions that could impact the security of his fellow soldiers and his country. When assignment notifications were posted, Marcus learned that he would be joining the 1st Battalion, 25th Aviation Regiment, stationed in Hawaii, and scheduled for deployment to Afghanistan within 6 months. The call to his mother that evening was emotional for both of them. "Marcus, I'm so proud of what you've accomplished," she said through tears of joy. "Your father would have been amazed to see how far you've come." They talked about the deployment ahead and the dangers he would face, but also about the incredible achievement of reaching his childhood dream against all odds. Word of Marcus's success had somehow reached his old high school, and Sergeant Martinez called to congratulate him personally. "Williams, when you first approached me about becoming a pilot, I knew you had potential, but I never imagined you'd reach this level of excellence. You've proven that determination and preparation can overcome any obstacle." The night before departing for his first operational assignment, Marcus sat in his quarters looking at a photograph from his high school graduation. In the background of the photo, barely visible, was Jake Morrison, the bully who had torn up his aviation magazine and told him that losers like him never become heroes. Marcus wondered what Jake was doing now, whether he had ever achieved anything close to his own level of success. Fort Rucker, Alabama, was known throughout the military as the birthplace of Army aviators. As Second Lieutenant Marcus Williams drove through the gates of the massive flight training facility, he felt the familiar mixture of excitement and determination that had carried him through every major challenge of his life. The next 18 months would determine whether his childhood dreams would become reality or remain forever out of reach. The initial processing was overwhelming. Hundreds of newly commissioned officers from West Point, ROTC programs, and Officer Candidate School had converged on Fort Rucker with the same goal: earning their wings as Army pilots. The competition was fierce and the failure rate was legendary. Marcus studied the faces around him, recognizing the same hunger and ambition that burned within himself. "Listen up, candidates." Chief Warrant Officer Martinez addressed the new class during their first briefing. 60% of you will not complete this program. The aircraft you'll learn to fly are complex, dangerous, and unforgiving of mistakes. We're not here to crush your dreams, but we are here to ensure that only the best of the best earn the right to fly Army aircraft in combat. The ground school phase began immediately, and the academic demands were unlike anything Marcus had experienced, even at West Point. Aerodynamics, navigation, meteorology, aircraft systems, emergency procedures, and dozens of other subjects competed for attention. The pace was relentless, with new information introduced daily and comprehensive exams that could eliminate candidates without warning. Marcus's systematic approach to learning, developed during his high school transformation, served him well. While other candidates struggled to manage the information overload, he created detailed study schedules, formed study groups, and approached each subject with the same methodical preparation that had carried him through every previous challenge. His first flight instructor was Captain Sarah Mitchell, a combat veteran with over 1,000 flight hours in various Army aircraft. She was known for her exacting standards and her ability to identify potential problems before they became dangerous habits. As Marcus completed his pre-flight inspection of the TH-67 Creek trainer helicopter,
Captain Mitchell observed every movement carefully. "Williams?"
"Tell me about the tail rotor system," she commanded as they prepared for his first flight. Marcus's explanation was thorough and accurate, covering not just the basic function but also the physics principles and failure modes. Captain Mitchell nodded approvingly. "Good. Now let's see if you can translate that knowledge into actual flying skills." The first flight was a revelation. All of Marcus's theoretical knowledge suddenly came together as he felt the helicopter respond to his control inputs. The complex dance of cyclic, collective, and anti-torque pedals that had confused many of his classmates felt natural to him. Within minutes, Captain Mitchell was allowing him to take primary control of the aircraft. "Williams, you have exceptionally good hands," she commented as they returned from their first training flight. "Your control inputs are smooth and precise, and you seem to understand the aircraft's responses intuitively. That's unusual for a new student." Her evaluation report that day contained comments that would prove crucial for Marcus's future assignments. Natural pilot ability. Excellent system comprehension. Recommend for advanced track. As the training progressed, Marcus distinguished himself not just through flying ability, but through leadership and helping struggling classmates. He remembered his own journey from ridicule to respect and was determined to help others who faced similar challenges. When candidate Johnson, a former enlisted soldier pursuing his dream of becoming a pilot, struggled with navigation procedures, Marcus spent his own free time helping him understand the concepts. "Why are you helping me, Williams?" Johnson asked during one of their evening study sessions. "We're competing against each other for assignments. You could just let me fail." Marcus looked up from the navigation chart they were studying. "Because someone helped me when I needed it most." Success isn't just about individual achievement. It's about lifting others up along the way. The instrument training phase tested every pilot candidate's ability to fly using only instruments, without visual references to the ground. This was where many promising candidates discovered their limitations, as the mental workload required to process multiple information sources while maintaining aircraft control was enormous. Marcus's years of academic discipline and his natural spatial awareness made him one of the top performers in his class. Major Thompson, the instrument flight instructor, was particularly impressed with Marcus's performance during emergency procedure training. "Williams, I'm going to simulate a complete electrical failure at night in marginal weather conditions. Show me how you handle it." What followed was a textbook demonstration of emergency procedures, as Marcus systematically worked through his checklist while maintaining control of the aircraft and navigating to the nearest suitable landing area. "Outstanding," Major Thompson noted in his logbook. "Cool under pressure, Excellent procedural knowledge maintains aircraft control throughout emergency. This candidate has exceptional potential for combat aviation. Such evaluations were rare and indicated that Marcus was being considered for the most challenging and prestigious aircraft assignments. The tactical flight training introduced candidates to low-level navigation, formation flying, and combat maneuvers. This was where pilot candidates learned to think like warriors rather than simply aircraft operators. Marcus excelled in this environment, his strategic thinking abilities complementing his flying skills perfectly. During a particularly challenging tactical exercise, Marcus's flight encountered simulated enemy fire while conducting a reconnaissance mission. While other candidates became flustered by the pressure, Marcus calmly adjusted his flight path, completed the mission objectives, and led his formation safely back to base. The evaluating instructor, Colonel Davis, made special note of his performance. Williams demonstrated exceptional judgment under pressure and natural leadership abilities. His tactical awareness and decision-making skills are superior to most candidates with significantly more experience. Strongly recommend for attack helicopter training. This recommendation would prove crucial for Marcus's assignment to Apache training. The social dynamics at flight school were complex, with candidates forming alliances and rivalries that could impact their success. Marcus's reputation as someone who helped others while maintaining his own high standards earned him widespread respect among his peers. When candidates were asked to evaluate each other for leadership potential, Marcus consistently received top ratings. One evening, as Marcus reviewed aircraft system diagrams in the base library, he was approached by Captain Rodriguez, one of the senior instructors. "Williams, I've been watching your progress and I'm curious about something. Your background is different from most of our top performers. What drives you to excel at this level?" Marcus considered the question carefully before responding. "Sir, I learned early that other people's expectations don't have to become your limitations. When everyone told me I couldn't become a pilot, I decided to prove them wrong by becoming the best pilot I could possibly be. That motivation hasn't changed." Captain Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. "That kind of internal drive often produces our finest aviators. External motivation fades when the pressure gets intense, but internal motivation becomes stronger. I think you're going to do very well in this business." As Marcus progressed through the advanced phases of training, word of his exceptional performance began to spread throughout the aviation community at Fort Rucker. Senior officers who specialized in attack helicopter operations began taking notice of the young lieutenant, who combined natural flying ability with tactical intelligence and unshakable determination. The final phase evaluations would determine which aircraft each candidate would be assigned to fly. Transport helicopters, reconnaissance aircraft, and attack helicopters each required different skill sets and offered different challenges. Marcus knew that his ultimate goal was Apache training, but he also understood that such assignments went only to the very best candidates. When the assignment board was posted, Marcus felt his heart rate increase as he searched for his name. There it was, listed among only 12 candidates selected for AH-64 Apache training. He had achieved the first part of his ultimate goal, but he also knew that Apache training itself would be the most challenging phase yet. That evening, Marcus called his mother to share the news. Her tears of joy were audible through the phone as she struggled to find words to express her pride. "Sweetheart, you've accomplished something so incredible. I wish your father could see you now." They talked for over an hour, with Marcus describing the challenges ahead, and his mother sharing her amazement at how far her son had traveled from those difficult days in high school. As Marcus prepared for the transition to Apache training, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The scared teenager who had once hidden from bullies was now preparing to learn to fly the most sophisticated attack helicopter in the world, but he knew that the real test was still ahead, and the memory of everyone who had doubted him continued to fuel his determination to prove that dreams backed by the United States Military Academy at West Point stood before Marcus like a fortress of tradition and excellence. As his mother's old car pulled through the gates, Marcus felt the weight of history and the magnitude of his achievement. 3 years ago, he had been the kid everyone laughed at. Now he was about to begin training at one of the most prestigious military institutions in the world. The first day was designed to break down civilian attitudes and rebuild them with military precision. Upperclassmen shouted commands, new cadets scrambled to follow impossible schedules, and the pressure was relentless. Marcus watched as several of his classmates, star athletes and valedictorians from their high schools, broke down under the stress. But for someone who had endured years of bullying and had already rebuilt himself once, this was just another challenge to overcome. Cadet Williams. The voice belonged to Captain Roberts, a stern upperclassman with eyes like steel. I see you want to be a pilot. Do you think you have what it takes to fly military aircraft? Marcus stood at attention, his voice clear and confident. Sir, I know I have what it takes, and I'm prepared to prove it every day. The captain studied him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. We'll see, Williams. We'll see. The academic workload at West Point was crushing. Engineering, mathematics, military history, leadership principles, and dozens of other subjects competed for attention, while physical training, military drills, and leadership responsibilities consumed every remaining moment. Marcus thrived in this environment because he had already learned to manage impossible schedules and multiple priorities. His roommate, David Park, came from a family of military officers and had always expected to attend West Point. He was initially puzzled by Marcus's intense focus and systematic approach to every challenge. Williams, where did you learn to organize your time like this? You attack every problem like you're planning a military operation. Marcus smiled as he reviewed his flight theory textbooks. I had some tough teachers in high school. They taught me that preparation beats talent every time. The flight orientation program during Marcus's second year was his first real taste of military aviation. As he climbed into the small training aircraft, his hands were steady despite the excitement coursing through his veins. The instructor pilot, Major Johnson, was known for his ability to identify natural flyers within the first few minutes of flight. Okay, Williams, let's see what you've got, Major Johnson said as they taxied toward the runway. Take us up to 3,000 feet and show me some basic maneuvers. Marcus's performance was flawless. His control inputs were smooth, his spatial awareness was exceptional, and his understanding of aircraft systems impressed the experienced pilot. After landing, Major Johnson made notes in Marcus's file that would prove crucial later. Outstanding natural ability. Exceptional system comprehension. Recommend for advanced flight training. It was the validation Marcus had worked toward for years, but he knew it was just the beginning. The real test came during his third year when combat branch selection began. Aviation was the most competitive branch, with only the top cadets earning slots for flight school. Marcus had maintained exceptional grades, demonstrated leadership in challenging situations, and earned the respect of his instructors and peers. But he still felt the weight of uncertainty as the selection process began. Colonel Anderson, the aviation branch representative, interviewed each candidate personally. When Marcus entered the colonel's office, he was surprised to find a relaxed conversation rather than a formal interrogation. Cadet Williams, I've reviewed your file extensively. Your academic performance is excellent. Your flight evaluations are outstanding, and your instructors speak very highly of you. But I want to know something else. Why aviation? Why is this so important to you? Marcus had prepared for technical questions, leadership scenarios, and hypothetical situations. But this personal question required him to reach deeper. Sir, when I was young, I was told repeatedly that my dreams were impossible, that people like me didn't become military pilots. Aviation isn't just what I want to do, it's who I am. Every challenge I've overcome has prepared me for this moment. The colonel leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus carefully. You know, some of our best pilots come from backgrounds where they had to fight for everything they achieved. They understand the value of the opportunity and never take it for granted. He paused, then smiled. Congratulations, Cadet Williams. You're going to flight school. The notification was official within days. Marcus had earned one of the coveted aviation slots, guaranteeing him a place in Army flight training after graduation. When he called his mother with the news, her tears of joy were audible through the phone. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You never gave up on your dreams. News of Marcus's selection spread quickly through West Point and eventually reached his hometown. Sergeant Martinez called to congratulate him, his pride evident in every word. Williams, I knew you had something special from the first day you approached me. You've proven that determination and preparation can overcome any obstacle. Even more satisfying was learning that his achievement had reached his old high school. Mrs. Patterson, the librarian who had encouraged his reading, sent a letter expressing her joy at seeing his success. "I always knew that quiet boy reading aviation magazines would accomplish great things," she wrote. "You've shown everyone that dreams combined with hard work can move mountains." The final 2 years at West Point passed quickly as Marcus prepared for the transition to flight school. He studied advanced aerodynamics, military tactics, and leadership principles while maintaining the physical fitness required for flight training. His confidence grew with each achievement, but he never forgot the humiliation that had first motivated him to pursue excellence. During his senior year, Marcus was selected as a company commander, responsible for leading and training younger cadets. One evening, he encountered a first-year cadet who reminded him of his younger self, quiet, studious, and clearly struggling with the social aspects of military life. The young man, Cadet Thompson, was brilliant academically but lacked confidence in leadership situations. "Thompson, what's your career goal?" Marcus asked during a mentoring session. The younger cadet hesitated before admitting, "Sir, I want to be a pilot, but everyone says I'm not the right type. I'm not naturally charismatic or athletic like the other aviation candidates." Marcus smiled, remembering similar doubts from his own past. "Thompson, let me tell you something important. The right type of pilot isn't determined by what others see on the surface. It's determined by your dedication, your preparation, and your refusal to accept other people's limitations. If you want to fly, then make yourself impossible to ignore." He spent the next several months working with Thompson, sharing the lessons he had learned about transforming perceived weaknesses into hidden strengths. Graduation day at West Point was a moment of triumph that Marcus savored fully. As he walked across the stage to receive his commission as a second lieutenant in the United States Army, he thought about everyone who had doubted him along the way. The bullies who had mocked his dreams, the guidance counselor who had told him to be realistic, even his own mother who had worried about his ambitious goals. They had all played a role in forging his determination. But more importantly, he thought about the people who had believed in him when he couldn't fully believe in himself. Sergeant Martinez, Dr. Chen, Major Johnson, Colonel Anderson, and others who had seen potential where others saw only obstacles. Their faith had sustained him through the darkest moments of doubt. As Marcus pinned on his new lieutenant's bars, he knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Flight school would test every skill he had developed and every lesson he had learned, but he also knew that the scared teenager who had once hidden behind the school building was gone forever, replaced by an officer and a leader ready to tackle the most demanding training in the military. The boy who had been laughed at for reading aviation magazines was now just months away from learning to fly the most sophisticated helicopters in the world. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he could still hear the echo of Jake Morrison's mocking voice saying that losers like him never become heroes. Soon Marcus would have the chance to prove just how wrong that assessment had been. The transformation began the very next morning. While his classmates slept in on Saturday, Marcus was already running through the empty streets at dawn. His breathing was ragged, his legs burned, and sweat poured down his face, but he pushed forward. Every step was a statement of defiance against everyone who had counted him out. His mother was surprised to find him doing push-ups in the living room when she got home from her night shift. "Marcus, honey, what's gotten into you?" she asked, concern evident in her tired voice. Marcus paused his exercise and looked up at her with a determination she had never seen before. "I'm going to become a helicopter pilot, Mom, and I'm going to prove everyone wrong." The physical training was just the beginning. Marcus had calculated that he needed to improve every aspect of himself to have any chance of making it into military aviation. His research had shown him that Apache pilots were among the elite of the elite. They needed perfect vision, exceptional physical condition, lightning-fast reflexes, and the ability to process multiple streams of information simultaneously while making life-or-death decisions. At school, Marcus's behavior started to change in ways that confused his tormentors. When Jake Morrison tried to provoke him with the usual insults, Marcus simply nodded politely and walked away. The bullies were used to getting a reaction, and Marcus's newfound calm confidence threw them off balance. He had bigger battles to fight than playground politics. During lunch breaks, instead of hiding behind the building, Marcus began approaching the ROTC instructor, Sergeant Martinez. The older man was initially skeptical of the quiet kid with thick glasses who claimed he wanted to be a military pilot. "Son, Do you have any idea how difficult it is to even qualify for flight school, let alone fly combat aircraft? Sergeant Martinez asked during their first conversation. Marcus pulled out a thick folder filled with research, fitness plans, and detailed knowledge about helicopter systems. I know it's the hardest thing I'll ever attempt, Sergeant, but I've been preparing for 2 months now, and I'm not going to stop until I make it. The depth of Marcus's preparation impressed the veteran instructor, who had seen plenty of kids with dreams but very few with concrete plans. Sergeant Martinez became Marcus's first real mentor. He began allowing the teenager to participate in ROTC physical training sessions after school, even though Marcus wasn't officially enrolled in the program. The other ROTC students were initially amused by the skinny kid with glasses trying to keep up with their workouts, but Marcus's relentless effort gradually earned their respect. "Williams, you're starting to look like a soldier," Sergeant Martinez commented after Marcus successfully completed his first full obstacle course without stopping. It was a small victory, but it felt enormous to someone who had been written off by everyone around him. The academic transformation was equally dramatic. Marcus threw himself into mathematics, physics, and engineering courses with an intensity that amazed his teachers. He had discovered that helicopter pilots needed to understand complex mechanical systems, aerodynamics, and navigation principles. Every equation he mastered, every principle he grasped, brought him one step closer to his goal. His physics teacher, Mr. Thompson, noticed the change immediately. "Marcus, your test scores have improved dramatically. What's driving this sudden interest in aviation physics?" When Marcus explained his goal of becoming an Apache pilot, Mr. Thompson's first instinct was to be realistic about the odds. But looking at the determination in the young man's eyes, he decided to become an ally instead. "If you're serious about this, I can help you," Mr. Thompson offered. "I have connections with some local pilots, and there are summer programs at the state university that might give you hands-on experience with aircraft systems." This was the break Marcus had been hoping for, someone in authority who believed in his potential. Rather than focusing on his limitations, the summer aviation program at the university was a revelation. For the first time in his life, Marcus was surrounded by people who shared his passion for flight. The instructors were actual pilots and aerospace engineers who recognized his deep theoretical knowledge and encouraged his ambitions. During flight simulator sessions, Marcus displayed an intuitive understanding of aircraft controls that impressed even the most experienced instructors. "You have natural spatial awareness and system comprehension," Dr. Sarah Chen, the program director, told him. "Those are qualities we look for in pilot candidates. Have you considered applying for military flight training?" When Marcus explained his background and the obstacles he faced, Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes the best pilots come from unexpected places. Don't let anyone convince you that your dreams are too big." Back at school for his senior year, Marcus had transformed into someone almost unrecognizable from the scared kid who used to hide during lunch. He had gained 20 pounds of muscle, his posture radiated confidence, and his academic performance had skyrocketed. But the most significant change was internal. He no longer sought approval from his peers because he had found his true purpose. The bullying continued, but it bounced off Marcus like rain off a windshield. When Jake Morrison made his usual helicopter jokes, Marcus would sometimes smile and say, "You might want to remember this conversation in a few years." The cryptic responses frustrated his tormentors, who could sense that their power over him had evaporated. Marcus's mother watched her son's transformation with a mixture of pride and worry. She could see his determination and growing confidence, but she also knew how cruel disappointment could be. One evening, as Marcus studied advanced mathematics at the kitchen table, she sat down beside him. "Sweetheart, I'm proud of how hard you're working. But what if this doesn't work out? What if they say no?" Marcus looked up from his textbook and took his mother's hand. "Mom, I'd rather fail attempting something extraordinary than succeed at something ordinary. And besides," he added with a smile, "I'm not planning to fail." His quiet confidence reassured her in a way that youthful bravado never could have. The guidance counselor, Mrs. Henderson, was forced to revise her assessment when Marcus's test scores and college applications crossed her desk. His SAT scores were in the top 5% nationally. His physical fitness tests were exceptional, and his letters of recommendation from Sergeant Martinez and Dr. Chen painted a picture of a young man with extraordinary potential. "Marcus, I have to admit I may have underestimated you," she said during their final meeting. "Your military academy applications are very strong. But I want you to have backup plans in case—" Marcus interrupted her gently. "Mrs. Henderson, I appreciate your concern. But I've learned that when you have a clear vision and you're willing to work harder than everyone else, backup plans become unnecessary." As graduation approached, Marcus had already received preliminary acceptance to 2 military academies and had scheduled his initial flight physical and psychological evaluations. The quiet kid who had been mocked for his aviation magazines was now on the verge of making those dreams reality. The night before graduation, Marcus sat in his room surrounded by the same aviation magazines that had once made him a target for ridicule. But now they served as reminders of how far he had come and where he was headed. Tomorrow he would walk across that stage not as the kid everyone had laughed at, but as someone who had refused to let other people's limitations become his own. The transformation was complete, but the real journey was just beginning. Marcus Williams stood in the school cafeteria, his lunch tray shaking slightly in his hands as the laughter echoed around him. The other kids pointed at his thick glasses, his secondhand clothes, and the way he always sat alone reading aviation magazines instead of talking to anyone. At 17, Marcus was the kid everyone overlooked, the one teachers forgot to call on, the one who seemed destined for nothing special. "Look at Airplane Boy," Jake Morrison called out from across the room, still dreaming about flying those toy planes. The popular kids around Jake burst into laughter, and Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment. He had been caught again, sketching helicopter designs in his notebook during lunch instead of socializing like the other students. Marcus quickly gathered his things and headed to his favorite spot behind the school building. There, hidden from the cruel stares and mocking voices, he pulled out his worn copy of Military Aircraft Quarterly and lost himself in the detailed photographs of Apache helicopters. Every curve, every weapon system, every technical specification fascinated him. While other kids his age were interested in cars, sports, or video games, Marcus lived and breathed military aviation. His obsession had started early. When Marcus was 8 years old, his father had taken him to an air show at the local military base. The moment he saw the Apache helicopter perform its demonstration flight, something clicked inside him. The way it moved through the sky with deadly precision, the thunderous roar of its engines, the respect it commanded from everyone watching, Marcus knew that somehow, someday, he would be at the controls of one of those magnificent machines. But reality seemed far from his dreams. Marcus lived with his single mother in a small apartment on the wrong side of town. Money was always tight, and college seemed like an impossible luxury. His grades were decent, but nothing spectacular. He wasn't athletic, wasn't particularly charismatic, and certainly wasn't the type of person anyone expected to become a military pilot. The guidance counselor, Mrs. Henderson, had been particularly discouraging during their last meeting. "Marcus, you need to be realistic about your future," she had said, barely looking up from his file. "Maybe consider community college, learn a trade. Not everyone can be a pilot." Her words stung because they echoed what he heard everywhere else, that his dreams were too big for someone like him. Even at home, support was limited. His mother worked 2 jobs just to keep them afloat, and while she loved him dearly, she worried constantly about his future. "Sweetheart, maybe you should focus on something more practical," she would say gently whenever he talked about flying. "Those military jobs are so dangerous, and they probably only take the best of the best." But Marcus refused to give up. Every day after school, he would walk to the public library and spend hours researching everything he could about military aviation, helicopter mechanics, and pilot training requirements. He learned about rotor dynamics, engine specifications, weapon systems, and flight controls. The librarian, an elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, had grown fond of the quiet boy who always sat in the same corner, surrounded by technical manuals and aviation books. "You know more about helicopters than most people who actually work on them," Mrs. Patterson told him one afternoon. "Don't let anyone tell you that knowledge isn't valuable." Her encouragement meant more to Marcus than she probably realized. In a world where everyone seemed to doubt him, she was one of the few adults who recognized his genuine passion and dedication. The bullying at school continued relentlessly. During gym class, when teams were picked, Marcus was always chosen last. In the hallways, kids would make helicopter sounds when he walked by, mocking his obsession. Some would even throw paper airplanes at him, calling him Captain Crash or Skyboy. The worst part wasn't the names or the pranks. It was the way teachers and administrators seemed to accept it as normal, as if Marcus somehow deserved the treatment because he was different. One particularly harsh day, Jake Morrison and his friends cornered Marcus after school. "Hey, pilot boy," Jake sneered. "When are you going to wake up and realize you're never going to fly anything more than a paper airplane?" He grabbed Marcus's aviation magazine and tore it in half, letting the pieces flutter to the ground. "Losers like you don't become heroes. You become nothing." As Marcus knelt to pick up the torn pages, something hardened inside him. The humiliation, the constant doubt, the way everyone treated his dreams like a joke. It all crystallized into a fierce determination. He looked up at Jake with a quiet intensity that made the bigger boy step back slightly. "We'll see," Marcus said simply, his voice steady despite the anger burning in his chest. That night, Marcus sat at his small desk and made a decision that would change everything. He pulled out a notebook and began writing down a detailed plan. If everyone thought he couldn't make it, he would prove them wrong. If the system was against him, he would find another way. If his dreams seemed impossible, he would make them possible through sheer force of will and preparation. He researched every possible path to becoming a military pilot. He studied the physical requirements, the educational prerequisites, the psychological evaluations, and the training processes. Marcus discovered that while many pilots came from military academies or college ROTC programs, there were other routes for exceptional candidates who could prove their worth through dedication and skill. The plan he developed was ambitious and would require years of sacrifice. He would need to get into the best physical shape of his life, excel academically, and somehow gain enough technical knowledge to impress military recruiters. Most importantly, he would need to develop the mental toughness required to handle one of the most demanding jobs in the military. As Marcus worked late into the night, planning his future with the same precision he admired in Apache helicopter missions, he could still hear the echo of laughter from the cafeteria. But now, instead of feeling shame, he felt motivation. Everyone who had laughed at him, everyone who had told him to be realistic, everyone who had treated his dreams like a joke, they had no idea what. They had just unleashed. The quiet kid with thick glasses and second-hand clothes was about to begin a journey that would transform him into something none of them could imagine. And someday, when he was at the controls of an Apache helicopter, defending his country and proving that determination could overcome any obstacle, he would remember this moment and smile.